I exactly don't remember when was the first time I saw the film Shawshank Redemption, but I have seen the film several times after that. I have also seen several interviews on the film by director Frank Darabont, by lead actors Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. There are also tons of material available in internet on Shawshank, and I would also recommend everyone watching this great film before watching this discussion in YouTube. The beauty of this film that it tells us several sub-stories within the context of one main story, and as a viewer we get fascinated by all those sub-stories. The story of Andy's life in Shawshank prison from 1949 to 1969, the story of Brooks, the story of Red's parole rejections to his final parole violation, the story of Shawshank Prison Library, the story of Andy's opera stunt, the story of Thomas, and even the story of Warden Norton's mischievous acts. We see the central theme for all these stories are same, that is redemption. Now the word redemption has religious context, philosophical context, and also financial context. For the sake of today's discussion, we'll keep ourselves to the philosophical context and little bit to the financial context of the word redemption. Also, it is impossible to discuss each and every aspects of this great film in one discussion. So we'll keep ourselves to the central theme only, at least what I believe to be the central theme. I would also like to bring another perspective to this film. I believe there is the influence of a scene from Blade Runner in Shawshank Redemption, which we'll discuss later. Now, before we come to all those, I would like to remind everyone that this film was not a major commercial success at the time when it got released. There can be reasons such that at the same year, in 1994, there were also two great movies that were released. Those were Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump. Okay, so we'll come to our topic, the central theme of Shawshank Redemption. Redemption. Now, the meaning of the word redemption is being saved from the power of evil or sin. Now, what is this being saved in today's world? And also, is this being saved is the right thing to do? All the sub-stories of this film ask this question and also try to answer them. In the story of Brooks, we see that after living in Shawshank for 50 years, Brooks has become much accustomed to the prison life, and he is unwilling to go outside of prison to the free world. And eventually, when he goes outside to the free world, he is always fearful. And finally, he ends his life to go out of his misery. After Brooks' death, Red coins this term, institutionalized. Red also explains this term to everyone. He says, the walls of the prison are funny. You first hate them, then you get used to them, then you'll start to depend on them. That's called institutionalized. And that's the fate of everyone in the prison, including Red himself. After Andy's opera stunt, when Andy came from the hole, Andy tells everyone that things like music are very important in prison life because the music can help remind everyone that there are places outside the prison and there is this longing to see those places. For example, Red's unfulfilled dream to see the blue Pacific Ocean one day. Music can keep those dreams alive. Music is such thing which the prison walls cannot take away from one person. After hearing this, Red warns Andy that hope is a dangerous thing. Because if there is a hope to go out of the prison one day, one can never be institutionalized. In Red's next parole hearing, we see that this hearing has become kind of a routine or formality for Red, and he has no intention to go out of Shawshank, and he has accepted himself to be institutionalized. Now this is exactly the state where the mind is without hope and completely bound by the rules and the laws onto what one is thrown into, and doesn't even dare to think beyond the walls of those rules. This is the mind of a slave. In 1982 film Blade Runner, before Roy saves Deckard, he says, "Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it?" This is what it is to be a slave. I saw an interview of Frank Darabont where he's saying he was fascinated by that scene from Blade Runner. And when I also saw this reference of living in fear in Shawshank Redemption, in Brooke's story, and in Red's monologue when he goes outside Shawshank, I also got fascinated on how these two great films share their own perspective of this concept of living in fear in today's world as slaves. In Shawshank Redemption, this is the central conflict, whether to live our lives as slave, being institutionalized, or dare to change our mindset and start questioning the rules and rise towards the path of redemption and finally become free from the shackles of fear. Now the film not only shows how to hope to become free, it also shows how to act to become free. All the actions and inactions that Andy did in his 19 years in Shawshank prison were acts of redemption. That started with the first night in Shawshank prison, when Andy remained completely silent in his first night, which is usually the toughest night for all prison inmates. During the prison roof work scene, we see that Andy took a very high risk approaching Captain Hadley. As an experienced banker, he saw an opportunity and he took that risk, which ultimately paid off. And as viewers also, we are rewarded with that scene of sipping cold beer after a long hot day's work. When we see that scene, we see there is some kind of spiritual bliss in Andy's face. He was not drinking any beer, he was sitting away from others, but it seemed that he was completely at peace with himself at that moment. An act of redemption. Andy used 3 posters to cover up the hole that he was digging in his prison cell. Those 3 posters represent post-war American male fantasy and sophisticated eroticism. The poster of Rita Hayworth from 1946 film Gilda, the poster of Marilyn Monroe from 1955 film 7 Years Each, and the poster of Raquel Welch from 1966 film A Million Year BC. It was obvious for the prison inmates to keep such posters in their cells to somehow satisfy their suppressed sexual desires. But for Andy, it was beyond that. For him, the satisfaction does not end at the posters. For him, it starts from the posters and ends way beyond to freedom, an act of redemption. Throughout these 19 years, Red witnessed all those acts of redemptions, the projects of Andy, and finally, he also convinced that hope is a good thing. This transformation from hope is a dangerous thing to hope is a good thing. This is also another act of redemption. I will end this discussion with the financial aspect of the term redemption. Yes, Andy redeemed $370,000 of Warden Norton's dirty money. Yes, we can consider that as the compensation for Andy for enduring 19 years of prison time for the crime that he did not commit. And also for the film, though it did not receive that deserved commercial success at the time when it was released, from 1995 onwards, this film became one of the top rented movie worldwide, and till now it has achieved way lot of commercial success. Another act of redemption. Okay friends, that was it. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and please continue to watch good cinema, quality cinema, and support good filmmaking, good film production and distribution by saying no to piracy. I am also indebted to my friends Sourav and Soumitra for creating this original tune in Raga Bhairavi. Thanks to them as well.